Hello guys, in this episode we will learn Photoshop version 2020. This course will be in architectural orientation, for example with architectural sheet and architectural diagrams, and the stuff that we need for representation, facade, plans and sections, and part of post-productions. First, I want to explain what is going on here, this section, to explain how we can open a file or how we can create a new file and how to start. So we create a new file here and we have a new document page here, and from this part I can put my measurement like millimeter, pixel, inch and so on. And the thing that we usually use for daily usage is centimeter usage. For example, we create a page in the measurement of 30 and 40, which will be an A4 paper. We'll define if it's vertical or horizontal. And the resolution 300 is for a high resolution. And because the devices in market usually show up to 150, it's really not necessary, and we can use at most 150 resolution for that. But if you want to print it, you need to use 300 resolution. Two important part here is that we need to use RGB format or CMYK. The main difference between these two, it depends on what you want to do. You want to print it or you want to use it online. If you want to use it online, you should use RGB. And if you want to print it, you should use CMYK. But you should remember, when you use CMYK, most of your filters in Photoshop will be disabled. So we choose white as our background, and 8 bit rate is enough for our work. And if you want more resolution, you can use 16-bit or 32-bit. We use create, so we have this page now as a result. And in the first episode now, we'll work on how to select the stuff and use basic colors and layering. In the first part, we should learn that this area in the very bottom is used for layering. And the option that we use for layering is the plus option that you can see bottom here to create a new layer. So this is how we create a new layer. And every time you create a new one, with double click on it, you can change the name. And later on, we change the name considering the color of the layer. Pay attention, from bottom left side, we have two options for color. And you can choose colors from these two options. Pay attention. Because usually when we are using, for example, gradient, for example, black is going to red, and because of that we can have two colors at the same time. One is our primary and the other one is secondary and gradient. And whenever you like, you can change the color with this option. And from this part, we select Paint Bucket tool. And in one of the layers, which is empty, we use it. We only need to click on the page in order to change the color. Now we create a new layer, and in the new layer we use green color. We click it like this. Again, a new layer, change the color to blue, and we click on it, just like this. Again, a new layer, we use yellow this time, and we click on it. And the reason that is because I'm creating a new layer is because every time that we add this color to the paper, it will be on the color before. So for example, if we have different colors, we should use different layers. And we use the move tool and show transfer controls, and we can move these colors inside the paper. We hold it from the corner and we lower the size. And after that we are done, we use enter to make it stable there. I want to select next layer, and because the auto select is automatic, we only need to click on each layer in order to activate it. With a simple click, as you can see, you can activate it. In some options it can be really useful, this auto select, and in some areas when you're using in post-production it can really annoy you. For example, when you need it you can activate it, and when you don't need it you should deactivate it. And as you can see, I put layers one above the other one. Unlike AutoCAD, in Photoshop, layering is really important. That when you have first layer is have the priority than the one before it. For example, the fifth layer is with lower priority than the layer 1. We can use controllers to change the size. And as you can see, it happens in uniform until you hold shift. And when you hold shift, you can change the size of these layers. If you're using lower versions of Photoshop, the layers properties is free, and when you hold shift, it will move with properties, which means it completely works the opposite. So when you're working with lower version of Photoshop, pay attention to this. And as you can see, really easy, I can place my layers inside the paper. The next topic that is really important here is that when you click on each layer, you have opacity here, which can reduce or increase the intensity of the color. And as you can see, when you lower the opacity, you can see the layers below it, just like this. So we use opacity here to make the layers see-through. And the option that we use a lot in Photoshop is system like blending mode, which we have a lot here, and how to mix layers together. Pay attention. So we turn back opacity to normal form, we activate blending mode, this all darken, and we can check one by one to see how they will affect. And in future I will explain which one we should use in what situation. But for now, let's just get to know this option. And depends to the project that we're working on. For example, if you're working on diagram or photo assembly or post-production, each one of them can give us a different result. And as I said, you can hold shift to change the variation of every layer. And if you use control for that, as you can see, you can change it like this and deform it like this. And as you can see, just so easily we can change the layers, and you can remove them with delete option and go back to normal. So in the first layer that we have, we use yellow color, and this rectangular tool is used for selecting a rectangular surface. I open a window just like this. When we open the window, we have the area for it. Now that we have the area, you can change this bucket and color inside this. And pay attention, when I do this, you cannot move it anymore. You cannot move the red surface anymore. You can select it again and separate it from the yellow layer. I want to go back to normal. We use Ctrl Z to undo the action that we took before. And from this part, I can follow the history of what I've done before. And you can go back as much as you want, and you can go forward as much as you want. And as you can see, as we move them, they are completely connected together. I want to select yellow color again, and in order to have this color in my option, I will use tool, and I will select my color by clicking on the surface here. And like this, we select the color and we turn everything to yellow. And because Photoshop is really good at distinguishing borders between colors, which means if inside your paper one side has another color, this is distinguishable for Photoshop. So I can select it here, and with Ctrl D you can deselect it and you can go back to normal. In this area that has been selected, you can change just like this. And you can color the borders like this and outside of the border, so you can distinguish inside your rectangular and outside of it without even selecting them. Again, I'm using the rectangular tool, and if I hold shift, it will do it in square for me. Now that we selected this part, I want to add another part to it. And remember, when you hold shift, it will add to your selection. And if you use alt, it will remove a part from your selection. So this is the part that we just selected. And right now, if I create a new layer and use another color like this, you can have it exactly in this form. So again, I can create another layer like this. So we created two different layers, just like this. And we use Ctrl D to deselect it. And we have an image like this. And let's review selections together again. We use rectangular, we hold shift to add another part to my selection, just like this. We hold alt and we remove some parts from the selection. And if I want them to happen like this, I will do it here. But when we do this in selection mode, it will be two parts. One part is yellow and the other part is red. if you click on each area, those areas that are bordered with each other, it will be colored. So to compile different borders, we need to consider for them. We use Ctrl Z. In order to go back, we create a new layer, and in the new layer we do that. And preferably we do them in new layer. And as I told you guys, in the files that we have, we can use open and add the parts that we need and the files that we need from. So for example, a file that I have like this in PDF in a separate tag for me. I just need to click and drag it here. With Control and your edge scroll, you can lower the zoom or zoom in. We will change it. And pay attention, if you have a scale like this, we can add the number here, for example 50% and 50%. So I can add the scale like this and insert it in my page. And one interesting thing happened here. The colors that we used, the bucket of color in this PDF that we used, and as I said, it knows borders. So with a simple click, I can color these areas, just like this. We can use a different color for window. And as you can see, the program really knows the borders using lines, just like this. Later on, we'll use this a lot in our presentations. In order to get the result that we want. Even as you can see, when I click again, because the areas are separated by the color, I can change them again. So we can use this option to create something interesting. We'll leave that and let's drag this again inside our file. We use move to change the scale of this. 50% in 50%. But I prefer to lower the size this time. Press enter. And this controllers, as you can see, you can rotate it just like this. And the angle that you want, we can put it up there, like 30 degree or minus 30 degree. But we will put it on 0 while we work on it. And I said when you use select, like this, and this selection, when it's combined with the lower layer, you can color between them. So with a simple click, I can define my sky here, which can be a really useful tool for us. We go back with Ctrl Z, with Ctrl D we deselect it, and the next tool that we are going to use is Elliptical. And this Elliptical tool, as it says, it will create or select an area elliptically for me. If I hold shift, it will be circle for me, and if you hold space, you can move it. So we place it here and we color the cross section between them. And with other tools, we use rectangular now we close this part. We use the cross section and use the bucket, and now we have this. So one of the most important tools that we use for representation is this bucket and this helping lines and the selection, which we can color and use it in our projects. And this is not necessarily only for this, and we can use this on pictures even. Let's open another file. Simple architectural image. For example, this picture. We insert it as a picture, we can drag it and use it in my main file, but we prefer not to do it. And in our background, with a simple click, we select the background in the picture because the program is defining the borders for us. We can change the section here. But pay attention, when I'm using this, it happens with a tolerance, which means it doesn't do it completely. And you need to click it a couple of times in order to do it completely, or increase the tolerance. And we put it on 50 right now. And as you can see, it cannot define orders in 50. So we put it back on 30 now. We put it on 40. And as you can see, it happens like this. And then the areas that we click, it selects more area with that. So with lower tolerance, it will work with higher accuracy. And as we increase the tolerance, it will decrease the accuracy. And you can color the whole surface with it. So this is one option that you can use it in many circumstances. And use it in all different situations and create something different. And as you can see, we made something graphical out of that picture. Let's talk about other selecting tools now. We use Ctrl Z and we go back to where we were. Now I want to use Polygonal tool. With Polygonal tools I can, let's insert another picture, which is more simple, so I can select it easily. For example, an area like this. I use Polygonal and I will cut it like this. If you use Control with plus, you zoom in, and Control minus, you zoom out. And when you want to do it vertical, you hold Shift and like this. You can zoom in so much that you can see pixels. So you increase the quality of your work. Because I don't want to spend too much time on it, I will not do it that way. And now as you can see, we selected this area. But what is the usage for us that we just did this? And now that we use Ctrl J, it will copy this layer. So with this Ctrl J, we separated this area from this part. It doesn't mean that we separated or cut it, we just made a copy from it. And in this layer we can do a lot of more things. For example, we can use the bucket like this and change the whole sky. And for the lower layer, we create another layer. We use the white color. We choose the bucket for it, and the sky and the background will be completely white. Let's create another layer underneath it, again like that. We select this area and we use the blue color that I have with the bucket, just like this, which has an advantage, and that's you can change the size of it, and you could put it behind your building. And again, I create another layer. I use a simple selection tool. I try to get it a little higher. We use a gray color and we do it like this. And as you can see, really easy. It's becoming a graphical landscape. Now that we got here, let's use some simple techniques to have a little variety. That we are using simple tools, and as much as we go further, we use more complicated tools as we go on and we do more projects. And if we use Ctrl E, they will emerge together. If we do Ctrl J again, we create another copy from this. So we use Ctrl Z to go back, and we choose rectangular again. In the middle, we select an area like this and we use Ctrl J. So we separate area like this. If you use tools like Ctrl U, which is hue and saturation, I can decrease the lower layer, make it lighter to create something interesting. And as you can see, we create something extremely graphical. It was like this, and my project is like this. We create a bold area just like that. There's a small detail, which is if you double click on a layer, you open layer style. And the first option that we want to use it is drop shadows. We do it, we increase the distance, we change the opacity, we change the scale, and as you can see, we created depth in our area, and it completely got separated from the main part. So we separated this area with dropping a shadow just like that. We have a tool like crop. We use crop. We do it like this to create better proportions. In general, I can say as the startup for a graphical design, this can be something interesting. I hope you enjoyed this lesson, and we share these lessons one day in between. And we try to explain details in diagrams and creating sheets and in isometric. And in general, the graphical thing that can help us. For example, in portfolio section, I will share it with you guys in those videos. I hope you use your time at its maximum potential.